The researchers are so confident in their findings that they have denied a grant from the Oregon Department of Social Services to do a follow-up report.
I don't think it's any use going over the same data over and over again. There's no domestic violence. I think everyone should just mind their own business.
Contrary to our preconceptions, most women are very happy. Now, if only we weren't so clumsy.
If I went to 5 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms, how is it that you came and said, let's stop this?
You're right, I made it up.
7 times?
Yes. Yes.
7 times you came to different places to say, let's stop.
I don't know which fight you're talking about. I don't know.
I'm talking about Australia, the day that
now
I
we're
shot
talking
my
about
finger.
Australia. Okay. Yes. I tried a million times.
And 7 times?
I tried
in different places.
Yes.
But
all
why
the
would I
places.
go in those places then?
Because you weren't ready to get over it. You couldn't self-soothe. You couldn't control yourself. You couldn't. No, because I would come to you. I'd say, look, let's get over this, work it out, whatever. And instead of you actually doing that, you would fucking explode. You'd get mad at me, and the fight would continue. Guess what? It could have been a petty argument. Like last night, could have been a petty argument. Every time, it could just be a petty argument. But when you run away, and then you validate it with some hierarchy, you're just trying to actually make it better. Nonsense!
I'm not trying to make it better necessarily, I'm just
No, you're not. You're trying to protect yourself only, because you cannot control your anger, and you cannot control it.
So when I listen to these tapes, what I'm hearing from both of them is that the reason why Johnny Depp runs and hides from Amber in their fights isn't because she hits him. He's not afraid that she's going to hit him necessarily most of the time. He's basically saying that he's running and hiding so that he has time to calm down, because he has this temper issue. Like, it's a well-documented temper issue that he has for a long time, since before he's known Amber. And he's saying that the reason why he has to lock himself away is, like, because he has, like, a monster inside, like, what they've kind of been saying, like, demons, monsters, something like that. And that's why he needs to lock himself away, to protect her from whatever his reaction is going to be. That's what I'm hearing on these tapes, and I just don't know how people have, like, twisted it into something else. Like, I don't see what's missing here.
I left last night, honestly, I swear to you, because I just couldn't take the idea of more physicality, more physical abuse on each other. Because had we continued, it would have gotten bad. And baby, I told you this once, and I'm scared to death of it. We are a fucking crime scene waiting to happen if we don't get our together. And that, by getting shit together, that might mean A, we do this and we make it. That might mean, goddamn, you know, you say, I've tried and done, toodaloo. But we've got to get our together as individuals and as a couple. Because I love you, and I do not want to leave you. I do not want a divorce. I do not want you out of my life. I just want peace. And if I'm the culprit, majority of the time, I will do everything I can. And I will recognize when I'm starting to go sideways. I will recognize it.
When it comes to, like, the abuse stuff on his side, in his trial, he seems to be downplaying the situation and saying that Amber's being over dramatic. You know, when she's saying that she feared for her life and stuff like that. But here you hear him saying that he's afraid of that situation and that he thinks that it's a crime scene waiting to happen. And he's worried about the physical abuse that they put on each other. And there was another argument that they had where Johnny asked Amber to leave and she refused to go. She asked him to call for help, call for the police, in a jokey way. And then he said, yeah, so I don't have a murder on my hands. So there's a lot of references to him killing her, and we've seen like the text messages that he's done in private where he's joking about killing her, and he's done it to her face. He's said stuff to that effect to her face, so she knows about that. And at what point should you take what he's saying here seriously? Because he does seem sincere when he's saying this stuff in these old tapes, and I don't think it can count as him placating her for him to be talking in this way. And then assigning a lot of the blame to himself, like when he says that he's going to recognize when he starts to go sideways, and then agreeing with her that he is the main culprit most of the time, and thinking about what he's doing wrong. Like, because of things like this, it's difficult to understand like why people would then think that he was completely innocent and that he didn't abuse her at all ever. Like when he's running away and hiding away, like he's clearly saying that the reason why he's doing that is because of his temper issues, and it's so that he doesn't react violently to her or around her. Like, that's what he's been saying this entire time. And I don't know what's not clicking, what's the disconnect for people who aren't hearing what he just said there.
No, in fact, you know what? I'm trying to make it better, but it is fucking time to think. You ask any fucking doctor, you ask Cowan, you ask anybody, the best thing to do, if it's coming to a fucking horrible, violent thing, is fucking walk away. Take your fucking time. Go to your corners. It's the best thing you can fucking do.
I would
7 times.
I don't know what 7 times you're talking about.
So he's saying that when it comes to a violent thing, the best thing to do is to walk away. I'm not sure who's causing the violent thing, because right now Amber's just saying that it's a normal argument. This is just with their words. She's saying that he runs away in the start of the argument, like because of words, it's insults, criticisms. That's the thing that makes him run away. So it's not necessarily him running away from violence caused by her, or violence that he thinks that he's going to do. That could be the reason why he decides to lock himself away. And I just wanted to point out like, how he does not respect Cowan's opinion about this at all. Cowan was Amber's therapist, and she reported the violence to him and other therapists. So he doesn't respect his opinion. I'm not sure what he thinks, because Johnny and Amber have been talking about the violence in their relationship. She's accused him since before they got married, to his face. She accused him of being violent, and he's never really disagreed with her. He's always sort of placated her and said, okay, yeah, it is my problem, da-da-da-da. So right now it just seems like the reason why he's running away, locking himself away, is because he's afraid of what his temper will do. And it's surprising like that Amber's the only one who's like complained about it. I don't think she's not the only one who's complaining about his temper. His other exes have, but they've not said that he was violent to them. And I wonder if like they just, when he decides to run away, they just don't question it. They think that that's fine to do, and maybe that's the difference between Amber and the rest of them.
5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms.
You were coked out of your fucking mind. You were fucking crazy. You didn't sleep for days. You were delusional. You were psychotic. Literally, you went into psychosis. Do not tell me about your behavior during that fucking escapade. I have tried to completely block it out.
And I threw the vodka bottles.
You can poke an animal. No matter how calm they are, you can fucking poke them.
Did I throw the
You
vodka
threw bottles, you threw me,
No.
you hit me. Yes, you did. You were...
Focusing on this quote where she tells him to his face, you threw bottles, you threw me, you hit me, and in response to that, he just said no. But then later on, he says this.
The only time I ever threw anything at you was when you fucking threw the cans at me in Australia.
So he just sounds very confused here. Like, I don't understand what this would mean, because he's now accusing Amber of throwing cans at him. And when you look at the pictures of what happened in Australia, You can see a lot of loose cans on the floor. You can also see that it was more than 2 bottles that were broken, because she's alleging that he broke lots and lots of bottles. There's a lot of glass everywhere, and also the Ben King testified that there was a lot of broken glass everywhere. So it seems like a lot more was broken, aside from what he said, because he's only accusing Amber of throwing 2 bottles at him, and now he's saying that she threw cans at him. And what I'm thinking is that maybe he's got some events twisted up in his mind, like he's saying it happened in Australia, but maybe he's confusing it with a different incident that happened somewhere else. I'm not sure what this would mean. But regardless, he's never said, like, what exactly did he throw at Amber, because he's saying that he did throw something at Amber at one point, and he's not really explained what that was. So that's something I'm not sure about, and it's never really been explained, unless I've missed it. Also, just wanted to point out that Amber's story has seemed to be consistent this entire time. Because if she told him to his face that he threw her and hit her, and this is September 2015, she told him this, and he has disagreed with it. However, he's not decided to break up with her, despite the fact that she's accused him of being violent here, which I think is very important to point out. Like, she's not making things up as she goes along. She's reported the sexual abuse to her therapist, and she's told him some chunks of what's happened. So he does know what her story is going to be to some extent. He does know what she's going to say. So it couldn't have been used to him in the UK trial when she said everything she said. He must have known that she was going to tell them about some of that stuff. So it's very surprising to me that he ever admitted to doing anything, because he has admitted to the property destruction somewhat, like breaking the phone. He does admit to breaking the phone in the UK trial. But then he changed his story in the US trial. So that's something that I find very interesting, because I think the property destruction, along with how heavy he was using alcohol and drugs at that time, as it appears to be, would be highly suggestive, like that what Amber Heard is saying happened probably did happen, more likely than not. So it's very surprising that he took it this far at all, and I don't understand why he would choose to do that.
You're right. Your 3 nights of skipping sleep, your bags of cocaine, your fucking Red Bull and your booze is all. You know what, Johnny? You know what? You want to hear what you want to hear? You're right. Let's get everyone in here to just pamper you and fluff you and tell you you're right. You know what? Your memory is probably
That's how you feel.
Your memory is probably equal to mine. It has nothing to do with your psychosis. It had nothing to do with the cocaine. It had nothing to do with the booze. It had nothing to do with your meds. It had nothing to do with your lack of sleep and how that puts you into a manic state. You're right. You are accurate. No, your memory's accurate. Your memory's accurate. You got it now. Your memory's perfectly accurate. You are a fucking stand-up man. You fucking no.
Even down to the 8 ecstasies, that's what she told him the entire time. That's what she said on the day of, that what she told Jerry Judge the day of, that he did take 8 to 10 ecstasy pills within the span of 2 hours. And no, that won't necessarily kill you. Like, other people have done that before, have taken 8 to 10 pills at one time and lived to tell the tale. So it won't necessarily kill you to take that much. It depends on like how much ecstasy is in one pill, and we don't know, because we don't know how much ecstasy was in each pill that he took. But it is definitely possible that this is true.
Yeah, you're right, I did. So you know what? You're probably right. Your memory, Johnny, is probably spot on and perfect. Comparable to mine, only sober.
Now, regardless of what this liar and scoundrel incorrectly transcribed, it's very clear that Amber Heard was sober on that trip. And Jerry Judge clearly says on the tape that she was stone cold sober. He says that, but yesterday she is stone cold sober. She doesn't smell of booze. We need to get this house before anybody sees it. We need to get it cleaned up. And she can't be stone cold sober and also be popping several pills and this and that, like that liar incorrectly transcribed. That's not possible. You can't do both at the same time.
But that's fine. You can guess it all you want. I fucking remember that shit. I remember that shit. You're out of your mind.
Yes, I will.
You tell me about a fucking vodka. You know what? I win. Forget it. I don't want to fight about Australia.
Now I just want to talk about this idea of like Amber Heard allegedly throwing this vodka bottle that hit Johnny Depp's hand and severed his fingertip. And talk about if he ever accused her of this to her face, because he does reference her throwing a vodka bottle, and she's admitted to smashing the first bottle in the fight. And even though he has discussed it with her in multiple fights, he's never directly blamed her for it or connected those two things, like the bottle being the reason why he lost his fingertip. And there's been so many times where he has said that he chopped off his own finger. And the only time where he did actually blame her, the only documented proof that he did blame her for it, happened after she got the tiara, which is a little bit convenient, perhaps. And also there's like zero medical evidence that is how he lost his fingertip. It's never been said that there was any glass shards anywhere on his hand. They said that it was a crushing mechanism, so shattered glass wouldn't necessarily be considered a crushing mechanism. So there's so many reasons why that doesn't seem like a plausible reason for how his finger got, how he lost his fingertip. Furthermore, the unsealed documents revealed that Mr. Depp is not alleging harm based on a specific physical or mental injury. So he seems to like not be accusing her of anything officially, but that could just be, people see that as an excuse for him to like get away from doing a psych evaluation. And then when I'm listening to the vodka bottle thing, because he keeps bringing it up to her, it could be possible that he did abuse her, and he's saying to her, you shouldn't have thrown the vodka bottle, like blaming her for throwing things around because that's something that provokes him, which is something that he brings up later on in the conversation. So they'll discuss like how Amber will throw things during an argument, like pots and pans, and he will tell her that that is irrational and that she shouldn't be doing that. So he could just be blaming her for the fact that she smashed the bottle, which is what Amber said initially, is that he kind of lost his mind. As soon as she smashed the first bottle, something inside of him snapped, and that's what made him do the rest of the property destruction and the abuse to her, the physical abuse. Like something inside of him lost it when she threw that bottle.
I'm justifying how you seem to think that there's this cowardice in me that runs away and I don't fight for you.
And you're justifying that by saying I throw pots and pans? Okay, cool. Let's talk about everything you do wrong.
I'm not the one who fucking did that. I didn't.
So that makes sense. That's clear. Yeah.
So here Amber is admitting that she threw pots and pans, but I think they're saying that she's not throwing it at him. It's just more of a gesture. It's like to be more dramatic during a fight. That's what she does. And it's similar to like the way he was smashing things in the kitchen. Like it's something like that, I think. I think that's what they're trying to say here.
The only time I ever threw anything at you was when you fucking threw the cans at me in Australia.
Why are you trying to justify who throws things based on whether or not you come knocking on the door? I don't get why one informs the other. Because that is a fucking irrational and violent fucking maneuver.
So here he's describing throwing something in that way to be a violent maneuver, but I just want to point out that this wasn't a maneuver that is unique. Like he's seen this kind of thing before, yes, from his mother, but also from Vanessa, because they have had fights, explosive fights like this, and she in an interview says that from time to time you have to do it when she said, I feel like screaming or throwing a plate on the wall. So she's thrown things during a fight. I think other exes of his probably have thrown things, and he has definitely smashed and thrown things in a fight. So I don't know why he's like describing it as like it's so unusual that she would do something like that when he's done that kind of thing before. We've seen that he's trashed hotel rooms like with Kate Moss in it, so he's definitely done that before. So I wonder why he's like acting like it's such an unusual thing for someone to do.
So a man would want to get out of that area so that he doesn't get so fucking angry that he actually does pop the fucking wife.
How does one inform the other?
Oh, man.
So what he just said there makes absolutely zero sense to me, because imagining the scene where Amber's like throwing pots and pans, like why would the instinct of a man be to punch her in the face? Like that makes zero sense to me. And he's saying that the reason why he has to run away is because he's getting angry, like that's provoking him. Her throwing things and like stuff like that, it provokes him, makes his temper go up, and that's why he needs to like lock himself away, so to avoid this instinct that is apparently typical for men to have, of like wanting to punch someone in the face when they do stuff like this. And I guess that is similar to like what his background is. Like he says that his dad has punched holes in walls and stuff like that, and I guess to avoid punching his mother, who was like throwing things around, stuff like that. However, I don't know, it just seems like there is a possibility that the reason why he's saying that that's his instinct suggests that he does have violent tendencies, and that when he is drunk and stuff like that, and he's not like looking out for himself as much, that he might get angry and actually hit her and just like not remember the next day. It is very possible when he's expressed that he does have that instinct inside him. So I just wanted to point that out.
That sounds very good, and I agree. But what about
in the moment?
What are we going to do different in the moment when you're mad and you go fuck it?
In the moment.
Decide all bets are off.
In the moment. Look what I did in Australia. Look what I accomplished. I put the fucker away. I told myself every fucking day, no, he's gone. No, I fucking put him away. I put him away.
And you can't stay locked up in here, David. You gotta run free, tear it up, you filthy caged animal. You can't stay a virgin forever, biatch.
On March 2nd, before Amber arrived in Australia, there's this text conversation where Johnny is asking for drugs, and he's saying, give me the goddamn numbers, I'll take care of this by myself, da-da-da. And then this person's like, I'll bring it to you, I'm sorry. And then Johnny Depp replies, no you're not. Why? That is not part of the job description, and I'm telling you now, any one of any of you guys sought to lecture me, I just do not want to hear it. I'm a grown man, and I will not be judged. I will never, ever live in this world cage any longer. So I've taken that to mean that he can't take like living in this world cage anymore. Like he's unleashed this monster that it was inside him this entire time. And then when he told Amber, look what I was able to accomplish in Australia, I was able to lock the monster away. So after they separated from that trip where she left him, apparently he got some help, and then that's what he's saying, like he was able to put the monster away. And then this text conversation, like 3 months after the events, he says, by the way, Amber and I have been absolutely perfect for 3 fucking months solid. I have locked my monster child away in a cage deep within, and it has fucking worked. We're goddamn best friends now. Amazing. Now it's very interesting to me that when he is able to put his monster child deep inside in the cage within, that suddenly things in the relationship between him and Amber are going perfectly well. There are no problems. They're best friends. Everything is completely fine.
Interesting. That's all I'm gonna say. interesting.
So I guess the key question here is, like, what did this monster child make him do that was so terrible in Australia that it needed to be locked away? Because he hasn't properly explained what did the monster child do that he needed to put that fucker away? What was it? What did he do?
Could have been you, even if you were blacked out and don't remember that, correct?
Objection, speculation.
I'll allow it if you can.
This was no blackout. I know you love the word. It was no blackout. It was shock.
When it comes to the Australia thing, I think he's getting stuck on this idea of it being a drug and alcohol-induced blackout, but according to him, he's saying that the reason why he was writing on the walls and stuff like that was because he had a nervous breakdown, and he's saying that it wasn't a blackout, it was shock. And to me, there is zero distinction between a blackout induced from alcohol versus a blackout induced from shock. I just think that a blackout is a blackout. It doesn't matter why it happened. The key point is that he basically, yes, he did lose time. He doesn't know what he did. There are things that happened on that trip, but he doesn't really remember. Like, there was a penis drawn on a painting, and he said that he might have done that, but he doesn't remember doing that. There's some writing on the wall that he doesn't recognize as his own, and he's theorizing that perhaps Amber did that. I think the stuff like with her nightgown and bits of meat in it, I don't think he remembers doing any of that. He's never said that he cut up her nightgown, but he also has never said that he's seen Amber do it herself. There's a lot of damage that he doesn't remember, damage to the house that he doesn't remember doing it. And it's not comforting to me in the least that he's saying that it's a blackout from shock. Like, that really isn't comforting, like, at all, to say it's a blackout from shock. It doesn't make it impossible that for Amber's allegations against him to be true, because the key thing is that he lost time. And when you lose time, anything is possible. He could have done anything to her and just not remember. So him saying that he doesn't remember, him saying there's a shock, from blackout shock from the stress, is really not helpful in this moment. I don't know why he thinks it's better. Maybe it's like how he thinks that it was better to say that he was joking about beating up the nanny that stole a $5 bill, instead of saying that he was joking about beating Amber up, even though he has previously joked about beating up one of his exes, Kate Moss, in a Rolling Stone interview. Like, he has a very strange way of like ranking this stuff, and like believing that it's going to be better for him to say that, yes, I did have a blackout, but it was a blackout from shock, not from alcohol and drugs, would mean anything to anyone. It really doesn't. It's really not helpful.
You testified that you were sitting on a bar stool, right? In Australia. This is before.
So you're fast forwarding to the end of of that argument.
Yeah, we've heard your account of the argument, and the jury will hear Ms. Heard's account of the argument. What I want to ask you is some specific questions about you're sitting on a bar stool. You've had 3 or 4, I think you said 3 shots of vodka.
I did 2 or 3 shots of vodka, yes.
I mean, I have to laugh.
I just wanted to review the photographic evidence of Johnny Depp lying on a stretcher with sunglasses on, with just because his fingers are hurt, like he has to be lying down with sunglasses on. I just think the sunglasses are a dead giveaway to this day. You can see how dirty his trousers are. I can't believe that is only 2 or 3 shots of vodka that would lead to that. He's clearly knackered from a 3-day drug binge. That's what it really looks like to me, if I had to guess. If I had to choose between his story or Amber's story. This seems like someone who's knackered from a 3-day drug binge. And there's also the doctor's notes of like him babbling incoherently after the fact. And then there's also the Secret Australia tape where he's saying some stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Would you
You dirty little liar.
Yeah, so like the beginning of that was a completely fictitious conversation that just never happened. He's gonna keep that in, even though he said he edited out all the white noise, he kept that in, and then he's gonna edit out the part where Johnny Depp is clearly saying,
"There's still a lot left in the day. Maybe she dyed her hair. I see you rose."
This is wrong. This is wrong. This is all so wrong. Try to be good, but you can't because it's all wrong. It's all wrong. Don't do fucking wrong.
and the reason why he edited it out is because the fact that Johnny Depp was drunk or high out of his mind doesn't make him look very good. So they decided to cut stuff like that out and paint this other picture, even though it's pretty obvious that he is drunk and high out of his mind. Let me show you the picture of him on the stretcher with sunglasses on, because his fingers are hurt. Like, it's very clear what's going on with him.
You know why I'm mad. Why? You know what you did. What did I do? You know what did I do?
You crushed that girl.
So Mr. Depp hit you in the face multiple times while he was wearing rings on this occasion, correct?
He's a busted main line, but you ought to hear him out. Bleeding fortified wine out of the injury that I call my mouth. Trying to insult some crazy fucker from the south whose arrow comes to pick me out.
Which occasion in March are you referencing? You weren't
The
specific.
testimony that you gave on day 15 of this trial, March of 2013. You weren't specific as to the day.
There were several incidents.
The one where he hit you several times in the face.
I'm sorry, just so I understand better. There were several incidents in March. Which one are you asking me about?
The time that he hit you several times in the face wearing rings.
Well, he pretty
in
much
March
always.
of 2013.
Right. What are you asking me? I'm sorry.
He was wearing rings on that occasion?
I pretty much always knew him to wear rings.
I just wanted to focus on this exchange between Camille and Amber because this is the thing that people keep bringing up as proof that Amber's story is too ridiculous to be taken seriously, it's too over the top, and this and that. And here you can see, like, what she said isn't that damning. So first of all, Camille continued to use the words hit instead of the word punch. And the word hit is kind of ambiguous. We don't know if that means a punch or a slap or something else. So it doesn't really tell you that much about the way he hit her face. And when I listened to this conversation, I initially thought that she meant that Johnny was slapping her the entire time. That's what I kept thinking. So I didn't understand why the rings would be relevant. And then looking at the pictures that they presented in court, in most of them, Johnny Depp is either wearing no rings or really small rings, like not the obnoxious show that we've seen in the trial itself.
You're broken and broke.
I also just don't understand why we need to rely on Amber Heard's shaky memory of something that happened in 2013, 9 years ago. Why not look at the photographic evidence and see what his hands look like on some of the days? Like, there's this one day where she says that he punched her in the face, and the next day you can see that he's wearing only 2 small rings. And then the times where that he's at his home, you pretty much see him wearing 0 rings at all. Like the Australia thing, he was wearing no rings. There's so many pictures where he's either wearing really tiny rings or no rings. So I don't know why you would need to ask her. Why not look at the pictures and compare that and see what you think? And then when Amber said that she's pretty much always known him to wear rings, the fact of the matter is that that's just not true. Like, she's just wrong about that. He doesn't always wear rings. And it's typical that the people who wear rings take them off at some points. Like when they're at their home, they don't usually wear their jewelry all the time. So it doesn't really mean much that she said that she pretty much has always known him to wear rings. If it wasn't relevant to the way he hit her, it can make sense why she answered the question the way she answered it. Because throughout the way she answered it, it seems like she doesn't understand why the fact of whether he was or wasn't wearing rings was relevant to the way he hit her. The key question here is that, does Amber Heard use the words hit and punch synonymously? Like when she's saying that he hit her face repeatedly, because she's also saying things like he hit her hard for a long time, but it didn't hurt. She's saying things like that. And when she's saying stuff like that, I would imagine that means a slap. I don't think that means a punch in the face, because if that were the case, she would say it hurt more. So that's why I always imagined that she meant that he was slapping her across the face. And then there's also that tape.
I said to you, hey, tell Travis what just happened.
You told me to do it. You told me to. You said, go do that.
I said, no, tell him what just happened.
And I lied.
And that you punched me in the fucking thing. And
you figured it out.
And you said, no, fuck it. No, I didn't. What the fuck are you talking about? And I watched you lie. And then
I didn't punch you, by the way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, you've been in a lot of fights. You've been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you fucking have a close
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not fucking deck you. I fucking was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you?
What am I supposed to do? Do this? I'm not sitting here bitching about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby.
Because you started.
You are such a baby. Grow the fuck up,
Johnny.
Johnny.
Physical fights.
Yeah, on this tape, I don't understand what he meant at the end there when he's saying that she's starting a physical fight, because when I'm listening to what she's saying here, it sounds like an accident. It sounds like she hit him based on an instinct, or because he told her to, because she at the beginning said that he told her to do it, and that's what he also said in the trial, was that he basically asked her to hit him, and then she just did what he told her to do. So again, it doesn't really sound like she did anything wrong there. And I don't understand why it would then need to lead to a physical fight in his mind. Like, why does he need to hit her back? Because, by the way, he always says that it's a physical fight. He never accuses Amber of beating him up while he does nothing. He's always said that it was a physical fight, and that means that he's done something. And there is that other time where he says that he threw something at her at one point. I don't know what that was, but there's a lot of reference to, like, he's doing something in return, and there are signs of, like, her having bruises, like grab marks. People have testified, his ex-friend testified to seeing grab marks on her arm. So it is suggestive that he's done something physically restraining her, stuff like that. All of those things could be termed as physical abuse. And I also don't understand why we need to discuss any of this once he has outright admitted that they have physically abused each other. Like, he's already admitted that he physically abused her on tape. Like, why does this need to be a long discussion? Why won't people just admit defeat, like, ages ago?
Mr. Depp hit you while he was wearing a lot of rings. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
And you testified you felt like your lip went through your teeth and it got a little blood on the wall.
Yes, I remember that.
I just wanted to point out this specific moment because it makes it very clear that Camille absolutely does know what she's doing, which I have always said that she does know what she's doing, and she's careful with the words that she uses because she knows that Amber uses the words hit and slap synonymously, and she doesn't use the words hit and punch synonymously as much, I don't think. And for this specific incident, Amber specifically said that he backhanded her, slapped her with the back of his hand, so his rings were relevant, and because of that she mentioned it. And she mentioned the effect that it had, that it cut her lip because of the rings that cut her lip. So she's mentioned those things before when it comes up. So for Camille to then ask her, like, oh, it's implausible for him to have hit her multiple times with rings on his finger, again using the words hit instead of punch, was very deceptive because, or it wasn't really that deceptive. I think it was very clear that Amber did mean that he slapped her. I don't think it didn't suggest to me that she meant that he punched her, because she specifically says times when he's punched her and times when he slapped her. She's very clear on the words that she uses. But that was not relevant to the general public. Want to know why?
You're putting words in my mouth, just the way you put artificial facts in your head.
All right. That was one where he grabbed me.
And hit you in the face so many times that you don't remember. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And there's no injuries to your face in this picture, are there?
This woman is testing me.
Not that this picture shows.
And there's no medical records reflecting that you sought treatment after this alleged incident either.
I did not seek medical treatment at this time.
So there's no medical records reflecting any injuries to your face after he hit you several times.
I did not need to go to the doctor at the time.
Despite hitting you several times that you lost count with rings on his fingers.
That's correct.
But throughout this entire trial, whenever Amber said the word hit, it typically meant a slap. And even like when the people were mocking things, like when she said, "Johnny, you hit me," that was in reference to an incident where he slapped her. I don't know at what point did we switch things where Amber is suddenly using the words hit and punch synonymously, when even on that tape she said that that's not the same thing. Or even if it is with the closed fist, it's suggestive that it's not with full force, and she's even saying things like it wasn't painful. She keeps saying that these things are not painful. So I don't know why people would then imagine him pounding on her face constantly, like with rings on, because she's never ever said that before. And then looking into this one incident where Amber specifically did say that he punched her in the face, using that word, she said that he punched her and she thinks that it broke her nose. It probably did break her nose. And then Amber describes the way she treated this broken nose by putting ice on it and like taking pain medicine. And then Camille's getting stuck on this idea of like, how come she doesn't have a medical record when most domestic abuse victims don't need to see a doctor. They don't experience injuries that are that severe to the need that they would need to go to a doctor. And especially with this broken nose thing, Amber did bring in evidence of that her nose probably was broken at some point and that it healed, but she for some reason wasn't allowed to present it because this trial was so fair to her. Anyway, I just wanted to clear up this misconception again for people who haven't heard it before, but you don't need to see a doctor for a broken nose. Lots of people break their nose without noticing it, and they tend to heal by themselves within like 3 weeks.
And when I was boxing, I broke my nose, but I didn't know I broke my nose, so it never got fixed. And of course I would have broken my nose. It's been literally 30 years since I've broken my nose, but I didn't know because I thought a broken nose looked like a broken nose. I thought it was like the guys in my gym where there was nothing, then a nub, and they're like, "What's up, champ?" No. I didn't know. I just thought I was a bleeder when I would get punched in the face. But no. Last year's when I found out. I went to the doctor last year because I was having trouble breathing. I go, "Hey, doc, I'm having trouble breathing." He goes, "What's the problem?" I go, one nostril works, and then the other one doesn't. and then when the other one stops working, the other one starts working. It's like there's a flap in there, like a train, local, express, local, express. He goes, you ever broke your nose? I said, no.
Wrong.
He said, you sure? I said, Doc, I'm not an idiot.
Wrong. He was so wrong.
Johnny, I never broke my nose. He goes, if you never broke that fucking nose in boxing, you should have 10 world titles by now. I said, I never broke it. He goes, lean forward, you fucking idiot. So I leaned forward. He goes like this. Yeah, your nose is broken.
Now I want to look into the December 15th, 2015 incident, the headbutt thing, which according to Amber was one where she feared for her life, and it was described as like the most painful of the incidents of abuse.
Mostly at that moment downstairs, he was hitting me in my face. Again, this is another example of when I wish so much I could tell you an exact sequence, but I can't. It's flashes. I remember him grabbing my hair, my head, and kind of dragging me up the stairs the rest of the way. He dragged me into the room that those stairs open into. It's like a salon foyer area. And we had this argument that kind of, was a shoving match that I was losing. By the second or third shove, he sent me toppling over this chaise lounge, like a little low-lying sofa seat. And I hit my head on the brick wall. There was an exposed brick wall. I remember I stood up, and I remember Johnny asking me if I wanted to go. And he did that thing where he's like challenging me. He said it in that way, challenging me to stand up and get back up. And when I did, he said, "Oh, you really want to go now, tough guy?" Shoved me back down. "Oh, you really want to go, huh? Oh, you're so tough." I stood back up again. This time he hits me in the face. I stand back up and look him right in the eyes. And it was just a really still moment. I'll never forget it. Really still. I stood up and he said, "You want to go again, tough guy?" And I just looked right at him, just looked right at his face. And he balled up his fists, leaned back, and headbutted me square in the nose.
So this is the thing that Amber has him on tape admitting that he did headbutt her. And then you can see pictures of her face afterwards where it appears as though she has a swollen nose and 2 black eyes. And I just want you to pay attention to the way she demonstrated how he did it.
And he balled up his fists, leaned back, and headbutted me square in the nose. Balled up his fists, leaned back, and headbutted me square in the nose. Just right as I stood in front of him.
Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell.
So Amber clearly demonstrated what that is supposed to look like, that he balled up his fist and held them by his side and then used his head to headbutt her. And it was very clear what she was saying there, but then people on TikTok removed the visual demonstration by Amber and then made it seem like, oh, he was wounding up to punch her, and then Amber changed the story and they were saying things like, oh, she's making it up as she goes along and her story's inconsistent, when that's actually not true. Amber's story always made sense this entire time, but people were very deceptive about how they made it seem. And this is the one thing where Amber has proof that he did do it. He's admitted to doing it. So it's just very low that people would then like go all these deceptive ways to make it seem like it's something that it's not. So again,
Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell.
Being happy screaming is like somehow the end all be all, a very sort of offensive thing. You can throw a punch, screaming is okay. You can headbutt somebody screaming, but don't scream. I
headbutted you.
Couldn't believe you did that.
forehead. That doesn't break a nose.
Just right as I stood in front of him, I was a foot from him. Just slammed me right in the nose, instantly, searing pain. It's one of the few memories I have in this long relationship that I actually remember the physical pain in that moment, just searing.
So when Amber's clearly saying here that the headbutt was the most painful thing of them all, and then she was using the word hitting, not the word punching, so there's leeway in that word, why would people then assume that her story is so ridiculous? Like, if you believe that she's making it up, why would you then assume that she meant like pounding on her face with rings on, when that's something that was never said by her? And it just seems like people want any excuse to not believe this thing, because and then they're trying to say that it's because Amber told such a ludicrous story when her story is very plausible. It makes a lot of sense. She never said that the way he abused her was painful. She used the words threatening, humiliating, angry, hostile. So I wouldn't assume that she meant that he was pounding on her face with rings on. Like, I don't think that that's what she's saying at all, to be honest.
And I remember thinking, you have your hands free. I had time to think. You have your hands free. You could have hit me with your hands. Why did you headbutt me?
Like, what is not clicking for people? She's clearly saying that the headbutt is worse than the way he hits her with his hands. Like, what's missing? Like, it's not... This is the most painful assault. And she's saying that it would be preferable had he hit her with his hands.
You're putting words in my mouth. Just the way you put artificial facts in your head.
All right. I own what I say what I fucking mean. I don't need anyone, fucking you or anyone, putting words in my goddamn mouth. I mean what I fucking say. Do you hear me? I mean what I say. I say what I mean. And you're not gonna sit here and fucking change it for me. I'm sick and fucking tired of you telling me all the time what I actually said and what I meant. I tell you what I mean.
Please,
what was
try
your
to answer
question?
my question.
Right, so continuing with the December 2015 incident, there's another argument between Johnny and Amber where she says that she dumped him a week prior after you beat the shit out of me. She said that to his face. In response to that, he says, I made a huge mistake, and says, well, I won't do it again. And I guess it's a little bit ambiguous that he might be talking about whether or not he said goodbye to her. However, if she accused him to his face of beating the shit out of her, why would he still want to be with her? Why would he never, say to her, you're wrong, I never did that, da da da. He's never, argued with her. He still wants to get back together. So that's something that's a little strange, some would think. Then there's a text conversation between Amber's dad and Johnny where he says to him, I understand what might be going on a bit, and he says to him that he's not mad and says a man has got to be a man. And this is coming from Amber's violent, physically abusive dad. He said that to him, and he said that I'm not saying that you were completely justified, but I understand, I'm talking to Paige, da da da. And then he says, I don't want to kill you or beat you up or anything like that. So it seems like the thing that they're talking about is a severe incident. And according to Amber, this is after he saw her lip, and it was after this December 2015 incident. And that's why he wanted to reach out to Johnny to patch things up with them. At the end of the conversation, he says, I know that from the bottom of my heart, I know that Amber needs help with her temper, the same as you need help with your problem with drugs and alcohol mixing together. Good causes you to lose control. Even though it's not one-sided, she's not blameless. And I know that, but she's my kid, and I love her unconditionally, but I think you do too. Again, this is coming from her physically abusive dad. And he's saying that she's not blameless. I'm not sure what this fight was about. I don't think Johnny and Amber ever explained what this fight was about. I think Johnny at one point accuses her of sleeping with the producer or something like that. So maybe that's what he means by she's not blameless, or whatever her temper is, something like that. But it just sounds like victim blaming nonsense to me personally. Anyway, Johnny Depp then ends up replying to him saying that he loves him and that it's rare in life when one meets a kindred spirit, a couple of madmen with the thirst for further. There have only been maybe 3 people in my entire life of your ilk. You're a rare specimen, and our friendship means everything. Now this is to, he's saying this to Amber's physically abusive dad. He's saying that to him. And then he says, yes, I fucked up and went too far in our fight. I cannot and will not excuse my part inside these dramas, but I can promise you with all confidence they will never happen again. My most sincere apologies if I've ever let you down. So again, it seems like he's apologizing for the physical abuse, because this did happen after the December 2015 incident, and he's taking most of the blame for that. He said that that he took it too far in their fight. And then when you look at the pictures from that incident where he's scribbled some graffiti where he says, "Why be a fraud?" all this such bullshit. So he writes her these menacing notes after some of these fights, like he did in Australia. It kind of reminds me of how, like, in one of the Manson murders, they started writing with the blood on the walls. Like, it sounds like he's doing this after he's been violent. It's very odd. And him saying that the headbutt was only accidental doesn't explain why he would then, leave her this menacing note afterwards, after he hurt her. Like, he hasn't explained any of these things or any of the other property damage. He hasn't given an explanation as to why he did all of that. And maybe he doesn't truly remember some of these things when they happened. Then 3 weeks later at an award show, Johnny Depp says this.
I also have to thank my wife, Amber, for putting up with me, for living with all these characters, which can't be easy. Well, it's hard for me. It's got to be hard for her,
Anyway, these are some pictures of her after the attack. She said that he also pounded on the back of her head, so I guess that's punching. But again, it's the back of the head. And she took pictures of bruises in her scalp. She said that he pulled out chunks of her hair, things like that. So those are the images, but I guess it is possible that there is another explanation for that, perhaps. Something that can explain why he apologized to her dad, why he thanked her publicly for putting up with him like 3 weeks after this event, why on tape he says that he did headbutt her, why her makeup artist does say that she covered up the injuries, the nurse who took a note of some of the stuff, the doctor who prescribed her medication for her headache after the fact. Perhaps there is a reasonable explanation for all these things where Johnny Depp is completely blameless, perhaps.
We appreciate everyone's concern, but domestic abuse just isn't the problem we once thought it was.
According to the report, cases previously mistaken for domestic abuse had other perfectly understandable explanations, such as rickety staircases, slippery showers, and poorly placed doorknobs.